Bingo.
Right. Does it say live for you guys?
Yeah, it
That's
does.
live
How
for
do I
me.
get it full screen though? Because this is slightly.
So there's a square, broken square on the bottom right. Click that,
Yeah.
and it'll open up.
Just bottom. I like
I'm on
highlight.
my phone though. Is it the same?
Highlight Daniel's screen.
I'm on the phone. It's maybe different. I don't know. I don't want to.
Oh no! Maybe we should have sorted these tech issues out prior.
It's the camera on my computer is awful, so that's why I kind of stick with my phone.
It's way too late now to be backing down and stopping this live.
All good, bring it on.
All right, let's get into it. So thank you everyone for joining in on this very, very special and exclusive Dad Bod Project Mental Health Threesome. This is the world's first Dad Bod Project Mental Health Threesome. What does threesome mean? Well, if you haven't noticed already, we've got two powerhouses here I don't know how to do that. I'm getting my hands crossed out. We've got two powerhouses that we're going to be chatting with at the same time. And this is something that I have been super excited about since the idea came into my mind. And I thought I have to get two of these guys that have come with the same subject, talking about the same subject, but delivered in such a unique and special way. So I thought it'd be an awesome treat to get them up onto this live and to be able to share their wisdom, share their knowledge, share their value. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got 3 to 4 decades worth of knowledge and expertise that we have the pleasure of viewing and hearing tonight. So thank you so much, Marcus, and thank you so much, Ben, for joining me on this Dad Bod Project Mental Health Threesome.
Thank you.
So just to give people an idea of a little bit of background before I let you guys introduce yourselves, I've done a few podcasts with Marcus on the idea of men's empowerment, mental health, what to do in challenging times, what does the idea of being vulnerable mean as a man, as a person. And we got so much good feedback on the two chats that we've had, and which was great. But then when I chatted with Ben around the same topics, we got delivered just so much insightful information from a completely different angle, which I thought was incredible. So I thought if we could smash these two together and just really pick your brains and to chat about really whatever comes up on the topics that you guys are experts with, I thought that would be an amazing night's worth of content. So without further ado, Marcus, if you want to go first and introduce yourself and a little bit about why you do what you do, who you are, and who the Marcus is. And then when Marcus is done, then we'll get Ben to do the same.
All right, cool, mate. Put me on the clock. Yeah?
Hold on. Sorry, man. Just a sec. If you guys want to comment and have your question, any question that you may have answered, just comment down below and I will bring your comment up. If you want to know, if you want us to know who you are and it not just come up as a user or a viewer, then maybe just comment what your name is so that we know who we're talking with, because otherwise if you just do a comment, we won't actually know who you are and you'll just be some random person that's commenting on the video. So maybe just introduce who you are and I'll be happy to throw the question to either Marcus or Ben or both or myself. So that's just a little bit of housekeeping. Over to you, Marcus.
Okay, all right. Put me on the clock. Here I am. So yeah, g'day, dads. Great to be here again. My name's Marcus. I've been a psychologist for a bit over 10 years now. I come to psychology with a whole range of different experiences before that. Psychologist as a late career, and fell into it in a way, but I was kind of born to do what I do, right? So I've always been kind of psychological in the sense that realized at a pretty early age, perception is our reality. Wondered the origins of the universe and why we're who we are, and just fascinated by how and why people think differently. Probably like many psychs or many people in the helping profession, that's also born out of much trauma and stress and suffering myself in my life. So I think, many people go into psych trying to figure themselves out first, which I didn't do initially, but learned a hell of a lot and loved the study and, very much and destined to be in this kind of role. So, but as my career has evolved through more pain and suffering. Pain is a great teacher the last few years, being a separated dad. I've gone even deeper within. So being in my own therapy, that was amazing and enlightening, but it was actually through more loss of a business that I had 2 years ago, the culmination of separation, loss of a relationship, identity fraud, all sorts of fucking calamities and all sorts of the shit that went sort of wrong. Then COVID hit, was the birth of me, if you like. So I think it's not really, it feels like last year was a magical year in the sense of personal growth, but I see it now as a culmination of things. So I'm here because I was destined to be here. Everything in my life couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't happen any other way. So, gone are now the idea of regrets that I used to have. Oh, if only I didn't do this, if only I didn't fuck up here when I was adolescent, if only I didn't do this or I didn't marry that person or whatever. Everything has happened for a reason, to bring me to where I am right here and right this very moment, doing what I absolutely love and am passionate about and brings me great joy is, talking to Dan, talking to Ben, like having these kinds of things, but talking to you guys, being able to somehow, help someone, a dad, a man, just be a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, to unleash the kind of the fire and the lion within them, to help them evolve. Like that's just what I'm about. I bleed this shit, like we were just speaking just before we came on to go live, this idea of, how could we get together and have our own kind of, head banging moment under the stars by the fire, which I've done so much and just had so much revelationary stuff, so like I practice as a psych, I have the professionalism and that expertise, but I like to think I bring the humanism and my personal life experience to everything that I do. So Dan, it's just a massive honor to be here, and it's a pleasure to be here with you too, Ben. So cheers. That was pretty good. That was only about 3 or 4 minutes. Fuck, I'm awesome. It took me like 10 minutes.
Beautiful, man. You actually gave me a bit of goosebumps, man. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
How the fuck am I supposed to follow that? Jesus.
Man, if you don't match that, you're fired.
Yeah. Well, it's a catchphrase. Look, I'm a perfectionist, right? So I'm working on this thing of perfection, connection over perfection. Just speak from the heart. Don't be scripted. Dan, asked us, what do you want to talk about? I think it's actually better to just go with the flow. I can be more authentic and natural that way. I just want to be raw and real with you. So yeah.
Love that. Ben, over to you, my bro.
Oh yeah, look, I mean, you got me on just so many of the points that I almost just wanted to have the conversation with, so like I was that engaged that it was like, yeah, I resonate with a lot of that. My name's Ben. I'm on the central coast of New South Wales, just outside of Sydney. And yeah, my journey didn't begin because I was looking to be a therapist or any such thing. I was always kind of more on the artist path in reality, and diving into my own darkness was really where it began for me, and realizing that if I didn't, pull my finger out, that I wouldn't have much more of a reality left, and so I chose to go against everything else that was happening in my life and choose a different path, and I got into counseling and then took a bunch of alternative routes. I've kind of always mingled the clinical and the sort of more esoteric or the more spiritual side. Again, coming from a very non-spiritual background, I've just had too many experiences that have proven to me that there is spirit. I don't know what it is. I don't have any name for it. I don't have a denomination of anything specific, but I have a deep connection of what I feel is God, and I do not tell that to anybody, but it's just my experience, because that's the way I see reality. I've learned to see reality because I don't feel it was inherent in my nature, but that gave me a very different perspective, and things like the more I kind of wanted to know bits of myself, the more I followed learning specific modalities or clinical studies and stuff like that into sexuality or plant medicines and psychedelics and a few other things as well are all sort of in there as things I've been studying for 20 years, really, 20 plus years now. And yeah, I do it for wanting to see the highest potential of humanity. human beings. You know, like I think we don't know our potential, and I think there is both a mystical side to us, and there's a greater potential which not enough of us, not that we're not achieving it, it's that we don't even know it's there. You know, it's like we've been conditioned to believe that we're limited to certain realms or places or beliefs or structures, that this is the height of, you know, the human experience, which I really don't think that it is. And I've traveled to ancient sites all over the world. I've worked at a few and stuff like that, to see what ancient people did without technology. I far from think this is the pinnacle of human experience. And I just want to see more step into who they feel they are or who they want to be, free of limitations, because that's when the individual's magic will come out. That's where the individual's personal, you know, gift to the world can come forth. So yeah, that's a little bit of my drive and where I come from.
I love that. You see what I mean, guys, about having two powerhouses but coming from such different angles. I mean, that's what I love. That's what I'm going to really love about this chat, is that we're just going from completely different angles, which is awesome, because we can talk about the same thing, but it be delivered in such a unique and different way. So thank you for that, Ben. So
can I say something on potential too? Because here we go, got me thinking.
Hmm.
So, like, there's a catchphrase that we say so often that does my head in. Oh, you know, you're only human. As if you're already presupposing a limitation. Like, you're only human.
It's a total limiting belief.
You're only, no, it's okay. You're only human. Like, what the fuck? You're already putting a limitation on yourself. And yeah, the idea of what Ben's referring to as potential, absolutely. I hate this kind of, you know, there's the report card potential. There's that sort of commercial and economical potential with respect to, oh, you know, he or she's not living up to their potential in terms of like academic success. But what the fuck does that even mean? Like like potential, where is that? Like, where is that kind of potential? How do you make a child feel worse when they've, like, by saying they're not doing good enough? But where is the yardstick? What the hell does that even mean? Intuitively, we think we know what that means. Oh, it means I could do better. But it's just reaffirming that we're not good enough the way we are. And then we must look outside and must seek sort of external validation and achieve career. That's what we think of when we say potential. But this actualized potential is actually already inside of us. We actually don't need to do anything. It's about doing less rather than doing more. Pursue things. Yeah, like, have goals. I've got business goals, and I'd like to make money in my own way like everyone else and have those kind of external pursuits, but not needing that as that currency for, oh, I've made it, because you've never fucking made it, because it's never actually good enough. It's an infinite line. You actually can't define it until you use language that I so much agree with that Ben talks about. It's that self-realization. I actually just already know I'm enough. I don't need kind of anything else outside of me to validate who I am.
Or anyone else, anything or anyone
Absolutely.
else.
Yeah. I always like to kind of,
I
like to be in the wonder of the world, because I think that's one of those things that's lost as a child. You know, it's that looking at the world with fresh eyes. And I kind of like the concept, I forget what's it called now. New mind or open mind or something like that is just one of the names of the terms of how to look at things. But it's beginner's mind, and walking into any situation, no matter how much you know the thing about that thing, if you go in with such openness, you can find wonder in the most mundane, you know. And it's everywhere. It's in everybody, and everybody has their own flavor and their own twist and their own style within that. And everyone has a gift to be heard and to show within it, you know. And the more that we can take on that wonder of the creation that is around us, from the simple to the complex, it can become more fascinating.
And the sometimes pressure we put on ourselves to, like, don't you agree, Ben, to like define ourselves or define things. And science is a wonderful thing to give us definitions and explanations of things, but to be wondrous and to just be any one thing can be explained in a multitude or infinite number of ways is absolutely beautiful. And you can actually find peace in that. Oh, why am I the way I am? What you could describe yourself. The power is you can describe yourself however you want to describe yourself. You can describe a situation however you want to. The way you think about things there's limitless possibilities to the way you think about yourself, the world, the way you think about a leaf, for crying out loud, the way you think about a drink of water like that. It's just we get so habitual, and there's a neurological explanation for it, for why we think the same things over and over again. Wear the same path. You're gonna create a rut. You're gonna make the familiar, well-worn path, but that possibility that was traversed an original first time. That was traversed one time before the rut was made. So neuroplasticity teaches this now, like open-mindedness, just that capacity to go, I could think about that loss, that breakup, that separation as she hurt me or I did this, but there's actually an infinite number of ways that I can think about that, and you can derive a great peace from that. Actually, it's not knowing. There's a Taoist saying that those that know don't know, and those that don't know know.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It's a thing I'd highly recommend any of your audience looking into Taoism, the Tao Te Ching. It's a paradoxical and difficult read in a way, but when you just surrender and understand its message, which is living, the art of effortless living, which is doing and not doing. It's striving but not forcing, not pushing. You just allow things to be and unfold as the universe kind of intends them to,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to touch on what Ben was chatting about, how a child looks at their world in such an amazing different way and from a completely different angle. And I think as adults, we have so much to learn from children in a sense of how they do life, how they interact with other people, how they just express their emotions, how they don't bottle up anything. Like essentially all the things that we trip over as adults, if we just undid a fair bit of that and went back to how we did life as a child. Obviously, being an adult means is adult responsibility, but I think we have so much to learn from our children and how they interact with themselves, how they interact with other people, and just how they interact with their world.
Absolutely. So agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, look, that's why it's an experience I look forward to having one day, as it's not been my reality yet. But I definitely, I feel like I've been building the basis of a healthier human being to bring up a new child. Do you know what I mean? Like to build me first, so that I've got the foundation for them to have an easier path, like to dread my one that didn't really serve, doing all this therapy and doing all this stuff, because if you can just build the blocks that they're constantly clearing or constantly able to be in that for longer, then they've got a greater longevity for what they can experience. And I think that's a key to changing the future and changing the world in reality. I think we need more of that, more empowered adults bringing up empowered children.
Oh man, 100%. And like the benefits, like the benefits for working on yourself is to actually be a better parent and provide that nurturing environment for your children, because exactly that, Dan, like just to watch a child just do their thing, just be themselves and playful and expressive and be brutally honest sometimes. And why do we want to get in the way of that and say, no, that's wrong or that's bad or whatever? So it's really important for us that one of the benefits I've found is being able to be a better parent for my children, because I'm not projecting my shit. I'm conscious of the stuff that I've inherited from my experiences and not loading that onto them. Not saying, oh, don't do that, son or daughter, because what will people think of you? Fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to load them up with that unnecessarily, or what will people think of you. They're going to have their own struggles with that, like any human does. But the best thing we can do as parents is, at least give them options and a space for them to be free to be themselves. Because there's a beautiful thing. Part of my journey in the last 18 months of I'm a big lifelong learner like you too, Ben, is embracing many things. So yes, I love my science and my clinical stuff in psych, but I love my esoteric and spiritual and mythology. Like I'm big on mythology and philosophy too. And it's Friedrich Nietzsche that he's a misunderstood creature, but his depiction of human sort of experience, our job, if you like, he says we're born camels. So we're born camels. We inherit the burdens of our forefathers and the social around us. And that makes sense. It's like, school, socialization with family, friends. So we're kind of a beast of burden carrying around the legacies of generations in front of us. Our job is to become a lion. And the job of the lion is a bit like what we're going through. I think many guys, or, when we're going through personal development, if you like, we're becoming the lion. And the job of the lion is to slay the dragon. And the dragon is thou shalt. You should be this. You've got to be a good boy. You've got to be a good man. You must be this. You must be that. It's all those expectations. You slay that dragon. And when you slay the dragon, you become a child, which is exactly that definition. What do we think of a child? Playful, it's free, it's expressive, it's creative, it's just free and spontaneous and playful and at peace to just be itself. I think that's beautiful.
I love that.
That's what I want to get that tattoo. Did you see that tattoo I had on Facebook?
I did.
Part of the tattoo I want to get, which is a lion slaying a dragon. Yeah.
Nice. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about that as well. The archetypes.
Yeah, huge love archetypes. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I've always been into like Joseph Campbell and sort of mythology and all of kind of that stuff as well.
Joseph Campbell, oh my gosh, amazing!
The king. He's just the king of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful! It's a great readers. You can't find it on. It's not on Netflix anymore, but you can probably YouTube the Power of Myth, and it's 6 episodes, and it's him just talking about the parallels across cultures of the hero's journey, because he became interested in all these different cultures and religions. They all talk about the same thing, regardless of anything. They talk about the same thing, which is inherently death and resurrection. The hero, it's depicted in movies, and Star Wars is a classic example.
Hollywood, yeah.
You give up. You've got to leave your current life. So, like, this is the way I think about it, Dad. Is right. What do you need to give up? What do you need to leave behind? What is your journey? What's the hero's journey you need to go on? All the challenges you need to face. It's the it's the Holy Grail. The pursuit of the Holy Grail means going into that darkness which we're most afraid of. And when we can do that, we transcend the demons. We bring that information back, and it's kind of like you come full circle, and the story is then shifted, so we can break that norm. We can break some of those cycles that we inherit from our parents. We can actually be that point of difference for ourselves and for our kids. Yeah, so well worth looking into that stuff. Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So one thing that I've chatted to the both of you, and the answers were delivered in such unique and beautiful ways, is the idea of vulnerability being a superpower, which both of you are massive fans. And we spoke about it in quite some depth during our chat. For the ones that didn't listen to either of you talk about vulnerability being a superpower, if you just want to kind of break it down as to why you believe that being vulnerable is a superpower, because I think that would be very useful for the audience to hear each of yours breakdowns of why you think that vulnerability is something that should be embraced rather than be scared of.
Sure, Ben, you can go first.
I was going to say you go first, man.
I've already done. I'm watching my clock. I talk too much, so it's all right. You go.
I kind of come better from responding, so that's okay.
Okay. Right, what's that? No, you go. You go.
Go.
Yeah. Right. So, how's it a superpower? So, I think to tie into the theme that's emerging from the talk so far, we're talking a lot about childhood, children. Children are inherently vulnerable, and understandably so. We're an interesting species that takes us up to about 15, 20 years to become independent. So a lot of psychologically our formative years, it's understandable, and it's pretty common sense why those early years of being a baby and child are so important. That idea that yes, they're being sort of playful and expressive, but they still need a parental care. They are vulnerable to dangers. And what happens as a child growing up is that them just being themselves is met And in a way, they're being vulnerable, but they don't know what is vulnerability. So they're just being themselves. In some ways, there's a physical safety element to it, but them just being themselves, if parents or the socials, the society, the body, the social body at large, they learn that just being themselves is bad or no good, they kind of start to then learn that being themselves is no good. So if I'm just being expressive in some way and that's met with some kind of negative feedback, I'm going to learn that that's no good. It's not good to be me in a sense. So I'm going to wrap a defensive layer around that. And then and that's going to happen a multitude of times. So we can arguably look at, for instance, personality really not being a stable construct, based in biology that many psychs argue. It's actually an adaptation to past experiences. So without getting too bogged down in that, now fast forward to adulthood, how and why it's a superpower is we face that. So it's that willingness to face that vulnerability. Oh, what if I be myself here and express myself in some way that feels deeply important to me, but I stop myself doing it because of that layer of fear? Well, a multitude of things are going to happen, but simply put, you're not going to change, and you're usually not going to get what you really want met in life. You're going to end up with a bad relationship, a bad job, staying in things for too long, just unhappy and miserable. Where and how it's a superpower is that if you can transcend that, confront that vulnerability. Hey, I'm scared to be myself in this situation, but fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. You transcend that fear, you break down some of those defensive layers, and you become like the lion. You start to be on your way to becoming the child, and that man, father, husband, son, brother, employee, worker, business owner that you intrinsically, soulfully sort of feel like you're destined to be. I hope that makes sense.
Loved it.
Yeah, such a different angle. So, and that's why I kind of love hearing you first, because it sparks all what's actually really going on for me, because I kind of hear it.
You know what? As a
that's
kid,
not
I was
how I
always
think about it.
and like as a kid, I was always the one who hit the jump first. Jumped off the
it's
rock.
totally my personality.
Does that happen in the bedroom as well, Marcus? Or?
Yeah, I know. I've confronted my vulnerability. We said vulnerability was the safe word, right?
What really made me think was is it kind of the saying that reality exists outside your comfort zone. It's when we get habitually conditioned or whatever to continually act in the same way, we're only going to get the same results. We're going to have a pretty predictable way of experiencing reality. And if you don't choose to challenge that, then anything that's denied is going to slightly twist. It's going to have not a negative specifically, but it's going to have either a healthy reaction or an unhealthy reaction, I suppose is probably a better way of saying it. And so the more that we kind of suppress or deny things that are within us, the more they're going to lead to some kind of dis-ease, And I think any humans beings, not just men, but anyone that really wants to know their full potential or know what is possible in their own reality, has to be open to being vulnerable, because it's not that you have to take on every experience. It's not that not every experience is for you, and maybe you've decided, no, I just don't want to be that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if there's like overt aversions, it's like, oh no, I don't want to do that because I've got a fixed belief that it means something, you know. That's something that I tend to lean into. It's like when I'm really uncomfortable, when I see that discomfort within myself, it's like, how can I incrementally do a bit of it, see how I feel, integrate how I feel? If I'm enjoying the challenge of it or want to get better at it, there's the bit more, until it becomes a new nature, and then your capacity for life is expanded. So you've got your known way of behaving is maybe still your default, but now you have the capacity to integrate another part of reality. It's like public speaking, say, you know, it's just like afraid to do it, but then kind of do it, freak out, realize it's not that bad once it's done, and then kind of go away, integrate for a bit, and then put your hand up again for next time. You know, it's now you've cultivated this superpower because you chose to be vulnerable, because you weren't just accepting that this is my lot or this is it, you know. So the
Yeah.
vulnerability comes in that, yeah, the reality lies outside your comfort zone sort of angle for me, you know, that we like, yeah, we don't know our potential. We don't know how much we're capable of if we just limit it to, well, this is what's comfortable for me, and I won't be vulnerable because that's too hard. And
And
it's always kind of
it's
the
kind of like a
thing
sense
to
of adventure, right? It's
totally,
kind of
and it's back to the wonder, and it's back to the,
exploring. You know, that's
yeah,
like how do we willing to go somewhere that I don't know what's around the corner. Like
it's
so
back
much
to that
growth comes
wonder.
from that.
It's back to the wonder. It's back into the kind of like, well, what's possible? Where can I go? You know, and it's like we don't know what we don't know. So if you're not willing to look, then again, just get comfortable with the predictable, if that's it. And that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that then know it's a choice as opposed to what's possible. You know, you've chosen to take the comfortable route, but then don't expect too much sort of change within that. So
Yeah.
You know, I think it's funny because time and time again, we are proven, us humans are proven that we don't know shit about shit because we'll learn something and then 10 years later it'll be the complete opposite and then it'll be that and then it'll be this. And it's almost like the more we learn about our minds, especially our brains and how consciousness works and all that, the more we learn we don't know anything about it.
mhm.
Absolutely, because then you're like, it's a funny thing. How does consciousness work? Well, first tell me, what is consciousness? What is it?
Yeah.
And then does consciousness exist if it's not being observed?
What is it? Just
You
what is
know,
it?
Who's
Biological
looking at
phenomenon, or
consciousness?
yeah,
you know, it's and I think I actually like the idea that we don't need it doesn't need a defined answer. Why does it need? Why does it need to know? And I derive a great amount of peace from that. And it's a sort of a somewhat morbid an aside. I don't mean it to be, but it's this idea of death. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Actually, gives me great peace.
I find it the great adventure. You know, it's no, but that's very much the shamanic way of looking at it. It's like certainly in sort of Peruvian medicine tradition and stuff like that, that they say this is the dream, and when you're on ayahuasca or something like that, that is actually reality. That
Probably, yeah. You know, and
it,
just that's possible. Like
yeah,
just
yeah,
that's possible. And
and the fact that
I'm being
we
open-minded to that. Yeah,
endogenously create the chemicals in our body, you know,
yeah,
it's like the if you put someone on antipsychotics or antidepressants, it can block their ability to produce endogenous DMT, and schizophrenic can't turn it off because they've flooded permanently with DMT. So it's like, so we need a bunch of different kinds of hallucinogens in our body to function. Then what does that make reality if
mm,
there's always some part of us that needs it to be tethered to this reality? Sometimes it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
And everything is then I can also sort of argue like that everything is actually psychological in the sense that perception is reality, that everything is really just activated from within. So the drug doesn't, or the
no,
drug is merely an activating agent to what's already there. It's the same
yeah,
when I was talking to you that the last talk I did with you guys about the ABC model. I mean, that's just a cognitive tool to help with stress. But really everything, all events do is activate what's inside of us.
mm,
There's an objective, like, okay, there's an objective, like there's a computer in front of me. Yes, that's objective, but there's still a subjective component to that. I have my own beliefs and meaning that's associated with that. And I just think that's kind of like cool. I think like that happens with everything. Like, so there must be even a psychology to each biological molecule in our system.
Yeah,
It has its own taken interaction and based on whatever's activated and its experience in the environment, you know. So yeah, I think actually there's a great summation to the summation I make is yes, we just don't know, and better to find. I think peace and empowerment actually come from not knowing. And as men, we kind of maybe feel like we need to have answers and to know and need a solid foundation and things and need to kind of grab hold of something. But it's actually okay to not to, and that's the vulnerability superpower as an adult we can kind of embrace as well.
Yeah, spot on about the whole men. As men, we are always trying to be the answers to all the questions that come up in our lives, and beat ourselves up if we feel that we don't have the right answer, or whatever the right answer even means in our minds. But you're spot on, Marcus, about as a man, we put all this extra unnecessary pressure on us to be the problem solvers, and because I think that is deeply ingrained into our psyche, which is we needed to be that person that when a saber-toothed tiger came out of the bushes and our family looked up to us like, or our tribe looked up to us like, what the fuck do we do? We're like, we have to come up with a solution. Otherwise, we're all fucked.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of outsmarted ourselves. So that ingenuity and that capacity to sort of engineer solutions is, you know, has outsmarted us in a way. You know, there's a multitude. I think Ben was just speaking something, you know, at the outset about sort of technology and things. I believe it's just such an amazing world we live in. Look what we can create. Look, you know, the human endeavor, you know, creation and engineering and science, exploring, and we've created this stuff. It's amazing in a way, but in another vein, we don't need it, but we've got ourselves boxed into a society and a way of living now where we do need it, you know, and it's that balance of trying to work with it. Fundamentally, just remember, guys, like, you actually don't need it to survive. It's about playing the game that, all right, I've got to play the game of life sometimes. And yeah, that does involve technology, and it involves, just playing the game of
it's a tool. It's a tool. It's nothing more than a tool.
Exactly. Follow the tool, but it's given us so much choice, and it's unintentionally meant to making our lives easy. Has unintentionally disempowered us.
Too many options.
I believe, yeah. We'll just go and Google it. Like, I had this thought the other day. Sorry to interrupt you, Ben. I had this thought the other day. The cognitive decline that would be coming even from just using GPS. Like, I was going back to see a friend that I'd only visited, or a mate that I'd only visited once before, and I used GPS to get there. And I went, it was like 3 turns, and I was like, I couldn't remember the turn. I reckon doing like some kind of study where people have to use an old Gregory's to find their way to get somewhere. Yeah, they only need to use it once, and after that, they'd be able to find their way there. But being reliant, tell me where to go, turn left, turn right. We're just losing our mind, and we're just losing that self-efficacy and that agency and that that real problem-solving ability, the one that helped us fight the tiger. You know, that's dissipating, and we are feeling very kind of impotent and disempowered as men. But we've fucking created this environment for ourselves. That's the weird irony of it all.
Yeah, again, I think that can sometimes happen when tools get misused,
relied upon.
So just to kind of bring it back to what we were talking about earlier, is that when you know yourself, like when you've learned who you are and what drives you, then you can better navigate these things rather than them navigate you. Because there's nothing wrong with having the GPS, you know, but as long as if that's a part that your conscious mind is better used somewhere else for a better cause, it's growing and high functioning in other areas, and it's a well-used tool then. But if it's just because it's the easiest option, and you know what I mean, like, so it's all about
100%,
it's all about once you empower yourself, then you can choose, because it's always about choice, you know. So once it's okay to take a day off, you know, as long as it's not every day, so
Yeah.
once you've built the strength within you first, then you're choosing, as opposed to not letting the unconscious or habitual mind make the decisions for you, then that's on the decline.
Absolutely. And I really am a big believer and proponent of what's imbued from behavior. So, there's that, like, if I have a thought, oh, I can't unless, so if I can't drive somewhere unless I use a GPS,
Yeah.
I go and drive somewhere, I don't use it, I further imbue or reaffirm that I can't do it. And I'm big on this with values. So if you, in a positive sense, so if you have I run by this kind of mantra, I do this because I value myself. So if I am aware of my values, things I like to do that are important to me, that are good for my sort of character, my health, my personal growth, having those kind of affirmations, I do this because I value myself. I go and do the thing I've imbued. I value myself. I can't just sit. It's this thing with affirmations. People have say affirmations. You can't just say the affirmation and not do anything with it. You can't just say, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, and hope for the best. You got to do I'm awesome while you're fucking doing 100 sprints. Or, because it's the behavior that matches with those, with that thought process that kind of, it becomes imbued. You feel self-worth. Like if I have the thought of I value myself, I do something of value, I feel self-value. If I have a thought I'm no good, I'm not good enough, I lay on the couch all day, that behavior together makes me feel like shit.
Yeah, it's got to be tethered with action, because once
Absolutely.
action, because that's informing the unconscious mind that even though it maybe wants a day off, it's like, yeah, you can have a day off when it's like a day off is due or whatever. It's in the days that you need to do consistently to get the habit up.
Yeah,
are the days that you follow through with action.
And that's why I like to make relevance for it. I love what you do too, Dan, and what I want to do in my stuff as well is like action is important. It's so important. You can't have this like subjective mindset over here and a subjective kind of like, action and what's your goals over here. They're inherently linked. And where a lot of guys, I think, struggle with goals and fall over with them is they're not aligned. The goals aren't aligned with their values. They're not actually really important to them. And helping them kind of see that actually it's not just, say it was, I want to lose weight or I want to run a marathon. The pursuit, that cliche, the journey and the destination, it really is true, because what is it about you? You need to confront those vulnerabilities in order to get there. And there's a real opportunity. I love goals and, vision and goals and values, because there really is an opportunity to work on yourself without, really without doing it, not without doing therapy. There's a place for therapy. I mean, I do that, but I just know from personal experience, I've overcome and become my lion in so many ways and overcome so many demons by pursuing goals that are of value to me. But the what you must confront about yourself in order to get there. It's that Holy Grail story, that myth of the Holy Grail but each of the Knights Templar, they're charged with their pursuit of their Holy Grail. They must find their own path. No path is unique. Like my path isn't the same as yours. You've got to kind of find your own way there. And that pursuit is where the growth comes from. That's actually the Holy Grail. It's not the outcome. It's the pursuit through the dark forest, confronting all your fears. And I love that stuff.
Yep, 100%.
And it's really interesting, Marcus, when you said the whole, like, I know what to do. And time again, when I speak to some people on the phone, speak to some men, they start with the sentence, I know what to do. And so much of my content, I try to come across as sometimes a bit of a smart ass to make people understand that, well, if you knew what to do and what you knew what to do worked for you, then wouldn't you be exactly where you wanted to be? So maybe you don't know what to do. And maybe that's okay to put your hand up and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help with X, Y, and Z. And I think being a personal trainer, back when I was still at the gym, I used to work with women as well. And if I think that a big benefit that women have over us men is that they are more than happy to throw their hand up in the air really high and say, I'm fucked. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. I need to get a trainer. I need to get a coach. I need to get a therapist. I need to get someone because I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that they are far better at being honest about the situation and being honest with themselves, saying that they don't know what to do, but that's okay. But I'll get someone to help me so that I do know what to do. Whereas sometimes men, because going back to again how we want to be the problem solvers and we want to have all the answers to all the questions, we start to almost believe our own bullshit with we think we know what to do, but clearly we don't.
It's back to vulnerability. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
You have to admit you don't know, and it's like, oh well, no, I'm going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the foundation of tribalism and all sorts of things, you know, where I'm gonna identify with people who, you know, believe and relate to me in the same way.
Yeah,
instead of being brave enough to go, oh no, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna, you know, set myself apart. I'm so clear. A lot of the thing to marry the two up, and a lot of being more contemporary though, we, you know, just with everyday dads, is a lot of the issue can be is they're actually not clear. I've got to look at the other side. They actually do know what to do, but they're not clear on the goals. They're not really clear on what they want.
Which means they don't really know what to do because they don't know what the destination is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, another question that I think would be an important one is something that I know you're big on, Marcus, as well as me, is the importance of self-love and the importance of loving the man that you see staring back at you. And I've noticed since working with men only that there is a massive amount of men that do not love what they see looking back at the mirror. And it's quite sad. And to be honest with the both of you, if I'm completely honest, I can't really empathize deeply of what that feels like because I've never been in a position where I've hated what I've seen in the mirror. If anything, I've been like way on this other side.
It's so hot, mate. You're a beast.
Where I'm trying to make out with myself in the mirror. So like
your whole house is a mirror.
Including the ceiling.
Yeah.
So this idea of so many men really struggling with this idea of self-love and really struggling with this belief system that we have had ingrained into society, which has said to men that do not, like, you love yourself. And I remember hearing that as a teenager and an adult, people saying in a negative connotation that, oh, Daniel, you love yourself, and like saying it like it's a bad thing. And sometimes I used to actually feel like, well, maybe I do love myself too much because all I'm hearing is this feedback of people saying you love yourself, and them not saying it in a good way. And I think the problem is with men, we don't know. I don't know. I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are on this, but I just feel that there is a huge majority of men that don't love what they see in the mirror, and they're not best friends with themselves, and they don't have a good relationship with themselves. And I don't believe that it's possible to have anyone else love you or you love other friends and family to the degree that you want if you can't even fall in love with yourself first and foremost. So I would love to hear the both of you unpack the idea of self-love and loving the man that you see staring back at you in the mirror.
Dan, you're up first this time.
I'm
just going to say, in high school,
Ben's always ducking and weaving that answer.
No, I'm already rehearsing. No, but in high school, though, we called them lovos.
Yes.
Oh, he's such a lovo. Anyway, go Ben.
Yeah, look, I mean, I definitely resonate with not having self-love, and that was probably a big part of my early journey, you know, and from my share last week of, you know, now I work in sexuality in a very deep end of sexuality, but it was because it was a reaction to, you know, coming into sexuality late in life. Well, not coming into sexuality, having sexual partners late in life because of rejection issues and all that kind of stuff. So it fed into my not good enough and me not valuing me. And I felt that quite deeply, and it was reflected from the external world, and as I perceived it anyway. And it was really me going to, again, back into the vulnerability and back into challenging the limiting beliefs that had held me in the spot that I was in. And yeah, doing the dark night of the soul and diving into the depths of the really uncomfortable bits and owning and admitting why it was that way, you know. And since, again, I always kind of see it as the ultimate measure of reality is what you see you're surrounded with, you know, and the feedback that the universe is giving you and things you attract into your life. And that's kind of how you know you've broken a spell in your head or a limiting belief that no longer exists, and you no longer attract it, or you're no longer around those people or situations or things anymore. That to me is how I measure I'm over that particular belief. And it was pretty much working sexuality for me was that of like being surrounded by like beautifully amazing women going, how the fuck did I get here? You know, it's like I must have turned a corner in my own world to think that I finally deserve to be around that, or to have that come into my life and not pushed away because I'm immediately going, well, I'm not good enough, so don't look at me. You know what I mean? So it changed. It wasn't sort of a conscious change in my head. It was coming to peace with, this is what I've got. This is who I am. I love it. I'm always intending to improve. I'm always trying to get better. There's things I can change, and maybe sometimes there's things I can't change, you know. But I can always change my relationship to that thing. It's not about the thing itself. It's about how I choose to look at it, or how I choose to act around it, or perceive it, or embody it, whatever. So I think, yeah, I have a very different, I have a lot of love for my reality now, because it was otherwise self-destruction. And so I kind of get that when you say that men are having troubles with it. And yeah, it's something I really resonate with. But again, I think it's vulnerability is back to the superpower of how to look at where it comes from and why you got there, and realize that it's not as big a deal as you make it out in your head. You know?
My
It's me.
turn.
Your
Yeah,
turn,
go for
Marcus.
it.
You forgot to say over.
Over.
All right, Roger. Victor. Yeah, look, beautiful, man. Thank you. So a couple of things, sort of all at once, that I'll try not to make too jumbly, but picking up on Ben's, but my own ideas. A couple of things. So self-love, I don't love myself. I'm just having thoughts I don't love myself, and they manifest themselves in time over and over again. You say the same thing, it's going to manifest themselves in emotions and behavior. So you start to believe it. So that's the first thing to be mindful of. So it's not just as simple as just stop thinking that stuff. Love is a behavior. I like to think of love as the verb, not the description. So, what are you doing to yourself? Is your behavior, the way you treat yourself and the way you treat others, your body or otherwise, is it loving? When a few psychologists, because they're amazing and brilliant academics, were once asked, define love. What is love? And they said, they came up with the same answer. This is what's interesting. There's half a dozen of them. They came up with the same answer. It's vulnerability. So love is vulnerability. So we can see by extension, self-love, self-vulnerability. I'm making the case for vulnerability as a superpower, right? So it opens the door to more self-love, and I've certainly experienced that. So I don't have to I haven't in my experience tackled I must be self-loving, but just doing things that I know to be intuitively aligned with my values, and trusting myself to try again, to be brave, to confront fears, is out of love. Why do I do this? Because I value myself. to the point though, of bodies are in the interest of, your group is in the interest of, fitness and wellness and, physical fitness and weight loss and such. My own personal journey is, I put the pick up when I first joined, I had a dad bod, very much so. I was a bit tubby. My mates used to call me fatty. Kids were poking at my man boobs and my belly and whatever. Interestingly, so I did a program and I've become, sort of changed my body in ways that I didn't think was possible. I'm super proud of that. But actually it begins psychologically and emotionally with, I actually just started to accept myself as I was. Not resisting anymore that I must change and this is no good and fighting against myself. Resistance increases stress. You're less likely to lose weight anyway. It's certainly not an act of love being stressed at yourself for the way that you look. And interestingly, when you look at the mirror, as you say, you're actually looking into the past, because the light, by the time that light gets to the mirror and back at your eyes, it's 6 nanoseconds. So technically, I know you go, fucking what a wanker. It's still it's actually still looking in the past. So every time you look in the mirror, you're looking in the past, which means every time you look at yourself and judge yourself, you're judging yourself based on the past. And it doesn't allow you to free yourself, that inner child, that vulnerability stuff, to actually make changes. So yeah, you can go do programs and be hard on yourself, but while ever there's forcefulness and it's about power and dominating yourself and I must grit and kind of all through hate and suffering, got to get there. You might get there, but it's certainly not going to be sustainable, and it's not going to be the love that's required that you're talking about. That's making that sustainable change beyond the body. And the final kind of point I'll make is, fundamentally, the body keeps the score, which means when you look at yourself and you don't like what you see, that's just the evidence of what you've not liked about yourself for a fucking long, long, long time. And so then you can kind of make the case that, yes, work on the body, change the way you look, lose weight for health reasons and all those somewhat, superficial reasons. It's nice to look good, but see it as an act of self-love. So when you do those 100 burpees and you want to quit, you're not doing it so you lose the weight. You do it because you value yourself, and actually putting yourself in a situation that is, in a controlled way, challenging yet appropriately painful, cuts through the norm. It's another way of cutting through what Ben talks about, cutting through that reality. You've actually got a new normal that, fuck, I can do that. What else I must be a pretty awesome person, and see there's a natural kind of spawning of new affirmations, new thoughts about yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that's a bit of a jumble of different things, but that's just
it was good, man. So if we do a little bit of an extension from what it is that we were just discussing, you mentioned the whole like getting triggered by other people and maybe by ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. Now, I would love the both of you to unpack a little bit about what it is that we see in other people that triggers us that we haven't identified with ourselves. Now, I think that this concept is going to be very profound to a lot of people that maybe are in the position where they're constantly being triggered by moments of time in their life. They're constantly being triggered by people in their environment, friends or family or strangers that are saying certain things that's making them feel like shit. And if you guys can just explain in a better way than I've butchered it.
It's a huge question, man. What you're asking
is a bit there.
Oh, that's huge. Like, it's so huge.
I mean more so like explaining it from the childhood perspective, and how the lack of feeling, whatever it is that's triggering us, has come from our childhood. Maybe simplifying that and explaining anything and anyone that is making us feel a shitty feeling is because of XYZ childhood, something to that effect. Look at me, all simplistic.
There is definitely multiple angles to that.
That's huge.
Sometimes the person can be a shit, and that's it. It's just the ends there. That can be one of it. Another of it is you're seeing something in another that you haven't integrated in yourself.
Yeah.
And then the other angle is that, it comes from embedded early memory of getting smacked because you did X, Y, Z, and therefore you now associate this with X, Y. So
those last two. Let's unpack those last two. They were good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go from there, Marcus.
Okay. So what I was going to say, as like that's theory, but as a helpful tool that I kind of talk to clients about is whenever you're triggered, yeah, someone can actually be like a douche, and you can do a little bit of a consensus, like as we do, is like, oh, what do you think of that person? Whatever. And they turn out there's a bit of an aggregate that person really was a douche. Okay, we'll leave it, right? But when there's a little bit of a pattern, you look at, well, what is it about me?
Why does it keep happening to me?
Yeah, well, but why can be problematic and lead to a bit of analysis paralysis, because there's an assumption there that there's a direct answer. I prefer what is it about me, because I think it just invites a little bit more free associating and kind of free creative thinking about it. So like, what is it about me that was triggered by that person, or that type of person, or that type of situation? I believe my kind of theory on becoming much more conscious of man and self-aware is actually from self-inquiry. There's a shadow side to that, which was in lots of inherent self-doubt. So like, why am I like this? Why do I do the things that I do? And I've kind of certainly been in depressive, dark places of being paralyzed by that. But I think healthy self-inquiry leads us, because if I'm asking the question rather than going, that person's a dick, instead I go, what is it about me that thinks that person is a dick? Then I'm inviting, a different creative space. I'm actually turning on a different part of my brain. And then I can kind of, allow myself to think about, what is it, that is really being triggered. And yeah, absolutely. Then it's a multitude of different theoretical examples, from schema theories to, unmet needs in childhood, traumatic memories, and all sorts of stuff, but that's really difficult to just dive into and sustain that space. I think what can really be a starting point, see consciousness as a slow descent down. We've got to take our time getting our way down there. We can't kind of thrust our way down, and just having that capacity for self-inquiry, being at least open-minded to, hey, that person did piss me off, but what is it about me that was pissed off by that? That's what I suggest to people, rather than trying to understand.
Or even the question as well, Marcus, where have I done the exact same thing to someone else or something else that I'm condemning this person for, and I've done the exact same shit?
Yeah. So often what I do see, so very often I think, which is the case for many of the people that I work with that are at least psychologically open and psychologically kind of minded, and is that a lot of the resentments they feel, I think, and I can relate to this a little bit too, is that a lot of sort of anger or resentment for someone being a certain way actually triggers their own kind of suppress something about themselves. So there's this kind of almost envy or jealousy or resentment that at that person's behavior, because they're actually just being themselves. They're not kind of towing the line. Hang on, I'm in that line stage. I'm in that stage of carrying all the burdens of others, and I'm actually angry that someone else is being the line and just being themselves and expressing themselves. That's actually can often be what it is. This is what we see in the schoolyard. You see in workplaces with bullying and things. Oh, that person, they're not doing what we all do over here. Where really everyone secretly wants to do all that other shit. It's like the antisocial personality disorder. It's the vast majority. I think there's an attraction to, say, like criminology and crime dramas, for instance, because there's a part of us, not that we want to murder people and do all that, but there's a part of us that has great envy for the outlaw. The spirit of the outlaw that really just does whatever the fuck they want to do. Okay, now sure, never rape women or do any of that kind of crazy actual crime, but they just fucking ride on the wrong side of the road if they want to. They fucking smoke inside if they want to. They just don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. And I really think that's a lot of what pisses us off most of all, is going, oh, there's a part of me that just wants to not give a fuck what anyone else thinks of me. That's all I have to say about that.
Very much so. Yeah, and I like what you were saying there too. Like that, ultimately, the only common denominator in the whole situation is you, and the only thing you can change about any of it is you. So your relationship to the situation is the only thing that can actually change. You can't change anyone else. You can't expect anyone to do something other than what they're doing. So you have to take the ultimate personal responsibility and have a look at, is it real? Is it me? Is it, is it coming from somewhere, or is it just something to unpack, So, it starts with your own inquiry about where your personal responsibility begins, and that's ultimately the beginning.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah,
but I think the empowering
taking
thing that sorry, Dan. I was going to say the empowering thing that comes. Sorry, Ben. The empowering thing that comes from that, right, is I notice I'm on the bottom too, right? And things are changing next time, boys. Let me tell you that. The empowering thing, the vulnerability / empowering thing that comes from that is, like I just changed my emotions and my whole take on things by realizing, you know what, I was a fucktard in that relationship. I did this and I did that, or and then just really accepting that, you can by all means choose to stay hung up on the story that she did this or my boss did that or the world let me down this. Sure, that's the thing. You really do have that choice. But when you can see that there are other options, you can be so liberated from it. And it really is a tragedy that borderline does my head in at times with some people. This life could just be it could be just so much better by a few degrees shift in their thinking and their approach and their kind of just outlook on things. But it takes, that you can't make happen. You can't lead that horse to water. What you can't make happen is the willingness, that openness. And thank God, universe, or whatever, I was kind of blessed with that at least, because it's that's got me through, many, if not all, challenges, is fundamentally just being open to things being different, So at the very end of the day, guys, just having an open mind and a willingness for there to be a different reality and at least think about or do things differently, you'll be on your way. Yeah.
Love that. Well, I think we could definitely go on for another 4 hours. But let's park it up for tonight. And no doubt, I think we're going to be having to jump on and do sequel after sequel if you guys have a good time and are open to that.
Yeah,
absolutely flew.
Yeah, it's like so much fun. Like, look at my face. Like, I'm just glowing. I get the same. It's like a roller coaster kind of thing. Like, I just love. It's the same. It's the same thing. You get nervous and excited before it, but it's just freaking awesome. You just don't want to stop when you're on it. That's like,
yeah, very cool.
Let's definitely. Oh.
No, I was going to say fireplace one day, but we'll talk about that
later. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this tonight, and I really do hope that the people that are going to be watching this truly got as much value as I did, and the goosebump feelings about talking about some really juicy topics and in so many different unique ways from you, Ben, and also from you, Marcus. So if there is people that want to know more about you, Marcus, and you, Ben, where do they need to go? I'll share some information down below in this live of what they can do. But is there any final words that you boys want to leave with?
Ben, you want to
go? Just remember to be gentle with yourself as well. I mean, I think we're our own worst critics at times, and being vulnerable means being open, and that is to yourself as well, So, you're not going to be perfect the first time you try everything, and it's okay, So, yeah, I think it's certainly been part of my journey is to realize that, not whipping myself to be something different, and it's okay, So we've all got a path to tread, and you just take one foot at a time, and that's all you can do. So as long as you move, that's all. It can be millimeters or meters at the time. It doesn't really matter, as long as you just keep going. That's about it for me. Yeah, you can just hit me up on Facebook or bengair.com. That's it.
Beautiful. I'm surprisingly a little bit lost to words, just with what to say. What are some closing comments other than if I just free associate and just, I guess, demonstrate right now what I'd love to teach is that, like, or help dads with, is it is just okay to be you in every single moment of the day. Like, say for instance, if I now just think, oh, what's a closing comment? And I really couldn't think of things, but just that's okay. Like, it's okay that I couldn't think of something to say. It's okay for you to not know the answers. It's okay to just be you, and the life and its journey, if you like, has every single moment that we take a breath is an opportunity to experience it, and therefore yourself, in the most full and richest way possible. We are deeply connected to the universe. We're one in the same thing. We have, we're made up of the same atoms as each other and all other creatures and things. And to me, that just gives me some comfort at times, because there is just such a beautiful and creative and loving force that just takes care of us. Just surrender at times to the process, surrender to yourself, and you actually already do have everything that you need to be the best version of yourself you can. So yeah, I did have something to say after all that. So just had to get past my little vulnerability, right? Look, dads, I'm super excited. I've just launched something that sounds a little bit similar to Dan's. It's called the Evolving Dad Project. Perhaps I could put a link to it. It's really a community for dads, like-minded dads, about personal growth and mindset and such. So it's a hit me up thing. It's ask questions. It's a download. There's some coaching package opportunities to explore at some point, but it really is just a community and support network for dads, just doing this and just doing what I love and just sharing my ideas, and we just kind of help each other. So I'll either give a link or just search Marcus Whelan, and there's an option to join the group from there, and then you get a free ebook with it as well. So all right, thanks again, Dan. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It was good. Enjoyed it.
My pleasure, boys. We'll definitely do this again sometime soon, but thank you once again, and have a good night.
Absolutely.
Let me end this broadcast, and then we can have a powwow.
Okay. Sure.